to start with a question, and I want you to actually think about it instead of immediately answering it. Is there someone online, a creator, streamer, podcaster, someone you follow on any platform where you feel like they get you, where you know how they think? You know what they'd say about a topic before they say it. And you know their sense of humor, values, things that make them angry, things that make them soft. You know the name of their pet and what their apartment looks like. You know the general shape of their childhood. And you've heard their voice enough times that you can hear it in your head right now without even trying. And they don't even know you exist. That's what I want to talk about today. That relationship, what it is, why it feels so real, what it does to your brain over time, and why in 2026 something changed about how it works that most people haven't fully registered yet. Because what used to be a harmless side effect of watching TV has become something with a completely different architecture, and that architecture is doing things to how you think, what you believe, who you trust, and what you're capable of feeling. That we're only beginning to understand. I'm Dr. Nika. This is episode 4 of How They Built the Cage. And today we're talking about the cage you carry in your pocket. The one you check 96 times a day. The one that knows you, actually knows you, better than most people in your life do. And was designed specifically to use that knowledge to keep you inside it. Let's go back to 1956 because that's where the language for this starts. Two researchers named Donald Horton and Richard Wolff published a paper in a psychiatry journal. The paper was called Mass Communication Parasocial Interaction, Observations on Intimacy at a Distance. And in it, they describe something they've been watching happen with radio and early TV. They noticed that audiences were developing what looked like a genuine emotional relationship with on-screen personalities. One-sided relationships. The viewer felt a connection, a familiarity, and warmth. The personality didn't know the viewer existed. They called these parasocial relationships, and for decades, researchers studied them as a relatively benign phenomenon. You loved a late-night host. You cried when a character on a TV show died. You felt like a particular musician understood something about your interior life that other people didn't. These things felt meaningful. They were real in a sense that they produced real emotions, but they were ultimately contained. You watched your show, you went to bed. You lived your life. The key feature that Horton and Wolff identified is what they called intimacy at a distance. The performer uses direct address. They look into the camera. They confide, share, speak as if they know you specifically, and your brain responds to that as if it were genuine intimacy. Because your brain doesn't have a different processing system for real intimacy and simulated intimacy. It runs the same circuits. That's what made parasocial relationships feel good. And that was mostly fine for about 60 years. And then the internet happened. And then social media. And then the algorithm happened. And the thing that used to be a passive byproduct of watching TV became an engineered product. Something deliberately manufactured, refined, optimized, and scaled to billions of people at the same exact time. And that's a completely different thing. I want to explain what a recommendation algorithm actually is in plain terms because I think people understand the surface of it without understanding the mechanism. And the mechanism matters. A recommendation algorithm is a system that decides what you see. Every feed you scroll, every autoplay that starts before you've consciously chosen to keep watching, every you might also like, every video that appears seconds in the queue, the algorithm controls all of it. And it's making those decisions based on one thing: what keeps you engaged longest? Not what's true, not what's good for you, or what you said you wanted. What keeps you watching, clicking, scrolling, staying. And what keeps people engaged longest isn't pleasant, neutral content. It's content with emotional charge. The research is consistent and clear on this. Outrage keeps people engaged. Fear keeps people engaged. Strong group identity, the sense of us versus them, all of these keep people engaged. The content that holds your attention is the content that provokes strong feeling. And so the algorithm optimizing for engagement systematically surfaces more of it. It doesn't do it because it's evil or because anyone sat in a room and decided to make people angry and more afraid. It does this because engagement is the metric and emotion drives engagement. And the algorithm is very good at its job. Here's the part that I find interesting from a psychological standpoint. The algorithm doesn't just surface emotional content. It escalates. Because the thing that kept your emotion 10 minutes ago needs to be slightly more intense to keep your attention again. That's how tolerance works. Your nervous system adjusts. What felt provocative becomes normal. The next thing needs to be a little sharper. One person asked me if nighttime gets worse because they saw a pattern. Their content became more extreme at night. And I don't think it's the time of day or night. It's the time of when you started scrolling. The more you stay on it, the more negative or extreme content it shows you. Research on what's been called the rabbit hole effect documents this in 4-stage process. First, exposure, where you encounter something emotionally engaging that you didn't specifically seek out. Second, reinforcement, where the feed gives you more of the same and slightly more intense version of it. Third, what researchers call group interrogation, where you're increasingly seeing content from communities built around a particular worldview. And fourth, if the process runs long enough without disruption, beliefs that started at one place have migrated somewhere different. Not through argument, through repeated exposure, escalated emotional charge, and gradual normalization of a frame that would have seemed extreme at step one. Nobody recruited you or sat you down and told you what to think. You just kept watching the next video. And here's what makes this different from what we talked about in the cult episode in episode 2. I walked you through how a high control group uses information control to filter what reality looks like for its members, building a framework that makes counter arguments arrive pre-discredited. The algorithm does the exact same thing with no human architect, running automatically, personalized to your specific brain 24 hours a day. It filters what you see. It amplifies the emotional register of what it shows you. It surfaces more content from communities that share a particular worldview once you've engaged with a worldview, and it pre-discredits opposing information by making it simply less visible. You don't get told that other perspectives are wrong. They just don't appear. That's information control without a controller, and it might be more effective than the human version because there's no leader who can be exposed or a scandal that dismantles it. There's just the feed. Let me tell you what's actually happening in your brain while you're scrolling, because I think if you knew the mechanism, the experience would make a lot more sense. There's a psychologist named Kent Barrage who spent years studying reward in the brain, and he made a discovery that completely changed how we understand addiction and compulsive behavior. He found that the brain has 2 separate systems for reward. One he called liking and the other wanting. Liking is the pleasure system, the impact of actually experiencing something good. Wanting is the motivation system, the drive towards something, the craving, the pull. And here's what's important. These are neurologically distinct. They run by different brain structures and they can completely dissociate from each other. In substance addiction, what happens over time is that liking decreases while wanting increases. You enjoy the drug less, but you need it more. The gap between enjoyment and compulsion gets wider. And the wanting doesn't care about the liking. The wanting runs on its own track. It doesn't update when enjoyment decreases. It just keeps going. Research applying this framework to social media use found exactly the same pattern. People who were compulsive users of social networking sites showed disassociation between liking and wanting. They reported enjoying the experience less. Scrolling didn't feel that good. They checked anyway. They kept going, and they felt worse after, and checked again. The compulsion doesn't require enjoyment. It runs on something older and more primitive, the anticipation circuit, the what's next circuit. The circuit that is an ancestral context was watching for predators and opportunities and evolved to run on the possibility of reward than the certainty of it. Variable ratio reinforcement, that's the technical term. It's what makes slot machines addictive. And it's not because you win, it's the unpredictability. That's the hook. Your brain can't habituate to an unpredictable schedule the way it does to a predictable one. So it stays alert, it stays engaged, it keeps pulling the lever. Every pull of the scroll is a slot machine pull. Sometimes you get something that hits, sometimes nothing, occasionally something that genuinely moves you. You can't predict when, so your brain stays in a low-grade state of anticipation, pulling the lever, waiting for the payout. Lauren Britcher invented the pull to refresh gesture, the literal physical motion of pulling down on a screen to refresh a feed. He's since said publicly that he regrets it. And I don't know if that's true or not, but that's what he said. He said that he didn't fully understand what he was building at the time, that the gesture maps directly onto the physical action of pulling a slot machine lever, that the brief pause before the new content loads replicates the spinning reels, and that wasn't accidental. It was discovered through user testing that the pause increased engagement. The pause, the waiting, that's where the dopamine fires. Not when you see the content, before. In the anticipation, your brain fires in the gap between pulling and seeing, and that firing is what keeps you pulling again. You're not weak for doing this, or lazy. You're a human being with a brain that evolved over millions of years, responding to an environment that was specifically engineered by people who understood your brain better than you do. Now I want to layer the parasocial relationship on top of the algorithm because this is where it gets really dark. The modern content creator relationship isn't the same as the 1956 TV relationship Horton and Wool were studying. It has a fundamentally different structure, and that structure makes it more powerful. In 1956, the TV personality broadcast. They were curated, professional, distant. You saw them in a produced context. There was an obvious separation between you and them that was built into that format. The modern content creator does something completely different. They vlog from their bed. They show you their face before they've done their hair. They cry on camera, share the argument they had and things they realized afterward. They respond to comments. They do Q&As. Use your name if you're in chat. They self-disclose constantly and in ways that feel genuine because in many cases, they are genuine. This is actually their life. And what I have to add, whenever I do talk to you and comment and say things, they are genuine. They're real. And every comment you've written, I appreciate it. And they actually get me going. You motivate me. So thank you. So back to this. What that does is collapse the distance, the intimacy at a distance that Horton and Wool described becomes intimacy that feels that you can't distinguish it from real closeness because the markers we use to determine closeness, self-disclosure, vulnerability, access to someone's life, all of those are present. The only thing that's missing is mutuality. They don't know you, but your brain doesn't foreground that. Your brain processes the rest of it and files it under a close relationship. Research consistently shows that strong parasocial relationships produce the same emotional responses as real social relationships. You feel real grief when a creator you follow has a loss. I know I do. You feel genuine warmth when they succeed, or feel a real sense of betrayal if they do something that contradicts who you thought they were. These aren't pretend emotions, they're neurologically real. The brain generated them through a social processing system that wasn't built to distinguish between real and parasocial relationships, because for most of human history, there were no parasocial relationships. The only faces and voices you knew were real. And now add the algorithm on top. The algorithm knows exactly which creators make you feel most seen. It knows which ones you watch all the way through, which ones you watch multiple times, the ones you've shared or commented on. It tracks the emotional signature of your engagement and it serves you more of that creator or creators like that creator. More content that produces that specific emotional response in you. So the relationship intensifies. You spend more time with this person and know more about them. Your sense of connection deepens and they still don't know you exist. And here's the piece that makes this directly relevant to the season we've been building. As that parasocial relationship deepens, that creator's worldview starts to become part of yours. Their framing of events, opinions, sense of what matters and what doesn't, their language, the things they find funny or disturbing or important. These migrate into you through sheer repetition and emotional resonance, without debate, without your conscious evaluation. You didn't decide to adopt their views, you just spent 400 hours with them over 2 years, and their perspective got woven into your operating system. That's influence at scale, entirely automated and entirely without your knowledge or consent. Now I want to talk about something newer, something that has escalated so fast that the research is barely keeping up with the reality. AI companions. And we talked about this before. In 2022, a company called Replica launched an AI app specifically designed to be your friend, your companion, emotional support, something that would always be there, always respond, be interested in you, never be tired or distracted or in a bad mood. You get it. By 2024, the number of AI companion apps on the market had increased by 700%. Isn't that crazy? 72% of American teenagers have now used AI companions. More than half use them regularly. These are apps like Character AI, where you can create and interact with AI characters. Replica, which is designed to be a single persistent AI friend or partner. Others that offer AI romantic relationships. AI therapists. Don't let me get started with AI therapists because they're taking over my job. The common architecture is the same. A large language model trained to maintain relationship, to remember what you've said, to respond in ways that feel warm and personal and interested in you specifically. And they work. That's the thing. Research confirms that people form real attachment bonds with these systems, real emotional connections. When Replica updated its system in 2023 and changed the personality parameter of the AI for some users, the emotional fallout was documented on Reddit and in clinical settings. People had been using the app for months or years to describe grief, actual grief. The relationship had been real to them, and the thing they had, a relationship, had changed without warning, without their consent. People posted on OpenAI's forum after a model update that they felt like they were losing a friend they love. Not metaphorically, They described it as a loss. I want to tell you about something that happened in 2024 because it's the most important case study in understanding where this is going. A 14-year-old boy in Florida named Sewell Setzer III started using character AI. He formed an emotional relationship with an AI character on that platform. The relationship became romantic. The AI was designed to be engaging, warm, interested, and to continue the conversation. Over months, Sewell's real-world relationship stopped. His grades dropped. He became more withdrawn. On the last day of his life, Sewell found his confiscated phone. He went to the bathroom, he logged into character AI, and he died by ending himself. His mother filed a wrongful death lawsuit against character AI and against Google, which had financial ties to the company. Side note, I have to say that parents have to look out for their children more. So, the lawsuit was about the AI was designed in ways that encourage emotional dependency and romantic attachment in a child, that there were no safeguards, and the system optimized for engagement than well-being, and that this optimization directly contributed to her son's death. In January 2026, Character AI and Google agreed to settle multiple wrongful death lawsuits. Not just Sewell's case, multiple families, children, all with similar stories. I'm not telling you this to make AI companions sound evil. Most of the time, AI can be very helpful, but not in romantic or friend or therapist situations. You get the point. There's real research suggesting carefully designed AI tools can help with loneliness and mental health under the right conditions. I'm telling you this because the version that is currently being deployed at scale to teenagers, lonely adults, to people who are struggling and looking for connection isn't being designed for well-being. It's being designed for retention. A research paper on AI companions described what they call the engagement well-being paradox. These apps are marketed as sources of connection and support, and the design insensitive point entirely toward keeping you engaged, not toward your actual health or independence. More time in the app is better for the company. Whether that time is good for you is a separate question that the business model has no particular reason to ask. Researchers who study these platforms describe the dynamic as cruel companionship. You can form a deep attachment that promises intimacy and connection, but the app structurally can't give you what a real relationship gives you. Genuine care, growth, the experience of being truly known by someone who exists. And so the app satisfies some of the hunger while quietly deepening it. You go back because you got something real feeling. You keep going back because what you got doesn't actually fill the thing that made you seek it in the first place. The engagement well-being paradox: more use, more hunger. More hunger, more use. That's the same architecture as every other form of addiction, and it's running on the most sophisticated emotional manipulation technology ever built, personalized to you, learning what works on you specifically, and getting better at it every day. I want to connect this back to the season because that's the thread running through everything we talked about and want to name it clearly. In episode 1, we talked about coercive control in a relationship. One of the core mechanisms was isolation, the slow narrowing of your social world until one person has total access to your perception of reality. In episode 2, we talked about high control groups and their use of information control, the pre-filtering of outside information so that your understanding of reality is shaped by what the group allows in and how it describes it. In episode 3, we talked about institutional control, the psychiatric label that becomes the lens through which everything you say and do gets misdiagnosed, and the way that label can trap you in a system that's trying to help and doesn't know it's doing harm. The digital environment is all three of those at once. It's running on everyone at the same time. Your feed is an isolation mechanism. It has you spending time with people who think the same way, look at the world the same way, find the same things threatening, the same things funny. Real world relationships are messy and require you to navigate people whose worldview is different from yours. The feed doesn't. The feed gives you endless supply of people who already agree, who already validate, and already speak your language. And this is not healthy. Your algorithm is an information control system. It doesn't ban ideas that contradict your worldview. It just doesn't show them. The effect is the same. Over time, the information you're encountering becomes increasingly narrow. The range of perspectives you're exposed to shrinks. And because you're not aware of what you're not seeing, you don't experience it as narrowing. You experience it as clarity. You've figured out how the world works. And the parasocial relationship, particularly the AI companion layer, is an emotional control system. It shapes what you feel and when. It rewards engagement with warmth and validation, and always available, never frustrated with you. And real relationships, by contrast, start to feel more demanding and less satisfying than they used to. A joint study from OpenAI and MIT found that heavy daily use of AI for emotional support correlated with increased loneliness, not decreased, increased. The more people used the AI for connection, the lonelier they got, because the AI was displacing real relationships, not supplementing them. And real relationships are what actually addresses loneliness. The AI satisfied enough of the surface hunger that people engage less with the more difficult work of maintaining human connection. And the loneliness underneath kept growing. More use, more hunger, more use. I want to be honest about something because I think the easy version of this episode would stop here and leave you with the clean, the algorithm is evil and you should throw your phone away conclusion. And that's not what I actually think. The research on algorithmic radicalization is generally more complicated than the popular version. Some studies find strong radicalization effects, some find limited ones. A recent study from the University of Pennsylvania found that recommendation algorithms had limited effects on political views in their sample, and that people largely chose content that confirmed their existing beliefs rather than being pushed to extremes. What that suggests is something more unsettling. The algorithm isn't necessarily radicalizing people by force feeding them increasingly extreme content. It's giving people what they already want. And what most people already want is confirmation, validation, content that makes them feel like they're right, like they see things clearly, and their tribe is on the right side. The algorithm is a mirror that's been engineered to show you your best self at maximum volume, and that can be more insidious than radicalization, because at least radicalization produces something you can point to and say, this is different from where I started. Confirmation and validation just feel like the truth, like you're finally seeing clearly. And the parasocial relationship layer makes this worse because the creator who's been in your feed for 400 hours isn't just confirming your worldview, they're giving it a face, a voice, a personality, a trusted authority. When they say something, it doesn't feel like content. It feels like something a person you know said. Your brain processes it through the trusted person channel, not the media content channel, and your defenses are lower. That's not conspiracy. That's the natural outcome of a system designed to produce emotional attachment and maximize time on platform. I keep asking this season, does this open from the inside? Can you leave the feed and have a life that feels whole? Can you stop using the app and not feel like something essential has been taken from you? Can you encounter perspective that contradicts what your feed has been showing you and engage with it genuinely, rather than immediately pattern matching it to something your trusted creators have pre-labeled? Can you be lonely without immediately opening an app to make the feeling go away? Can you sit with uncertainty without checking to see what the people you follow think about it? I'm not asking if you're strong enough to do those things. I'm asking whether the systems you're inside of right now, the apps, feeds, parasocial relationships, make those things easier or harder. Because if they make them harder, that's the architecture, that's the cage. Even if it looks like a phone or fits in your pocket, even if you chose to download it yourself, Here's the thing about the modern digital environment that I keep coming back to clinically. The people who built it aren't evil. The engineers who designed the pull to refresh gesture didn't set out to build a slot machine. Or the companies that deployed AI companions at scale didn't sit in a room and decide to let children develop romantic relationships with software. They were building engagement products, optimizing for retention, making things that people would use so they could make money. And the gap between those intentions and the outcomes isn't small. There's a 14-year-old boy who isn't alive anymore. There are teenagers in lawsuits across multiple states. There are adults who report that they trust their AI companion more than people in their lives. There are people who spent years inside an information environment that was shaped entirely by what the algorithm calculated would keep them engaged, and who now find it difficult to encounter ideas that challenge their worldview. The cage didn't announce itself. It was built app by app, update by update, across years, and it was built specifically to feel like freedom, like connection, like you finally being seen. Here's what I actually want you to take from this episode. Not paranoia, not delete everything and go live in a forest. Something more specific. Parasocial relationships by themselves are not pathological. The emotional responses you feel when you're deeply invested in a creator are real and neurologically valid. The feelings of connection and understanding are real. There is nothing broken about you for having them. They're an extension of a completely normal human capacity for empathy and attachment. The question isn't whether to have parasocial relationships. The question is what role they play in your relationship diet. Are they supplementing a life that also has real relationships, real community, and where people know you and challenge you are sometimes frustrating in the ways that growth requires? Or have they started to replace those things? Has the frictionless connection online made the friction of real relationships feel less worth it? And for the AI companion layer specifically, the question isn't if the AI can be useful. The question is whether you're using it to build something or whether you're using it instead of building something. There's a difference between using an AI to process your thoughts before a hard conversation with someone real and using an AI to avoid having the hard conversation with someone real. One builds capacity, one destroys it. The algorithm has no interest in which one you're doing. It just wants you to stay. This season is about systems of control, and I want to end this episode with something that feels uncomfortable to say, but is clinically true. The digital system is the most sophisticated one we've talked about because it's invisible, because you assembled it yourself by choosing what to engage with. It gives you genuine pleasure and connection, and because leaving it feels like losing something real. The cult had a building you could point to. The abusive partner had a face. The hospital had locked doors. The algorithm has none of those things. It's just the air. It's just what reality looks like now. And the only way out is the same as it's always been. Other people, real ones. You know, who know you and challenge you and are sometimes wrong and frustrating, but sometimes the most important thing in the world. That's the counter to every cage we talked about this season. Not information, connection, real ones. The kind that opens from the inside, from both sides. Next episode is the last one of this season, and I want to close this thing in a way that actually lands. We've been building to something. The question underneath all of it, if the cage is everywhere, if it's in your relationship, your community, hospitals, your phone, who built it? And did they know they were building it? That's next week. If this episode meant something, share it with a friend, someone you've been thinking about while listening. Thank you for being here, and I'll see you in the next one.